Hi, it's Linda Fox. I'm in the PhocusWire Studio at Travel Technology Europe. I'm here with Tom, who's CEO of Taptrip, and also with Neil, who is COO of Taptrip. Thanks for joining me, guys. So let's start with the ATPI funding, which is great news for you guys. So I just wondered what it's going to enable you to do that perhaps you wouldn't have done otherwise.
Yeah, so for us, the journey for getting a partnership with ATPI, it's kind of, we spoke to many different TMCs and we found that the first TMC that we really wanted to work with was culturally aligned with us, and we had an aligned vision on what the product would look like as well. And that's where it kind of mutually worked with us and ATPI. What we've basically understood is that as a technology provider, we are not the expertise at operations, the customer service, all the offline stuff that the new emergents are having to kind of learn and go through that process. And that's where the partnership with ATPI really came in, because we get the best of both, where they're really good from a travel management company point of view, and when we're really, really good at technology, and when you match that together, it has a really compelling proposition.
Okay. And were you actively looking for funding, or was that just, a bonus?
So actively looking, and it kind of, so we were raising money, but when we first started speaking with ATPI, it wasn't about the cash, but it came into that we got to a really good relationship with them, where it made sense for them to put a strategic investment in. One, because we could accelerate what we're doing with them, and two, we would rather have a strategic partner who understands us from both a technology partnership and from a relationship point of view, and that's where it became the right time.
Sure. Okay, so Neil, what do you believe you're bringing to them?
A wealth of knowledge, really, from a technological perspective. TMCs historically and present day have always worked quite an offline manual model. We want to elevate that and bring almost a consumer grade user experience to the business travel world. My background is Skyscanner, Tom comes from Booking.com, we have Jack who comes from PokerStars, the CTO. So we're trying to fuse our travel knowledge and industry experience with kind of the gamified, elevated user experience of the gaming industry. Sure. And that then creates a very compelling and user-friendly product.
So does it allow you to accelerate what you were doing?
Completely, because our strategy, we don't go direct to business anymore. So we're looking at partnering with more and more TMCs to work with them. We're not in the game of building our own travel management company that's enabled by technology, which a lot of them are doing. We don't want to do that. We're not good at that. We know we're not good at the operations. We are technology people. Yeah. I look like a developer. I don't look like a business person. So that is why we're focused on that area.
Is that a change you've made, or a decision you've made recently, or is that always kind of what you started out to do?
So we started on the model that a lot of other people have done.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
As we understood the market more, and particularly in last year, more and more travel management companies kept coming to us and coming to us and coming to us. And so it all came inbound, and that's where we understood that there's an opportunity there, rather than just building what other people are already doing, where there's a really compelling proposition for us to focus on. And there's a real need there, as long as we find the right partners.
Now you guys all you just mentioned it there, Neil, you're talking about that sort of that gaming element, bringing that, and also you've said in the past about sort of that Spotify, Netflix type user experience, but how can you really bring that to business travel?
So there's various ways we can do it. First of all, it's keeping things very simple. You'll note that some of the really high-end technology brands, their app, their mobile solution, their web, it's very easy to use and people get it straight away. Simple things like creating a wizard and completing information at a company level and an individual traveler level, and say having something as simple as 5 stars to get your profile completed. Once that's completed, then you're fully more immersed into the product, you're more likely to use it. That then in turn drives up compliance. For example, our average customer at the moment sits above 95% compliance. My understanding is the industry is about 64%, and that's just because the platform is just so intuitive and easy to use. My mum, she won't mind me saying this on camera, she is a massive technophobe.
So I always mention your mum on camera.
I love my mum dearly, but she's been a great use case. Just someone that's not really technically savvy, and she absolutely loves it. And she's a real advocate now. So.
Okay, and you don't think that maybe some of your adoption level is down to the fact that these are people that perhaps weren't using a solution before?
It's a good point. So they've always used a solution. So disparate systems. So Booking.com for hotels, Skyscanner for flights. It's a very fragmented journey. You're not getting data back, so you can build any controls around your travel policy, understanding what's being spent where. And 92% of SMEs have never understood or used a travel policy before. So helping educate them in a gamified way by going through an onboarding wizard to then create a business travel policy It's simple, it's easy to use, and it drives compliance too.
Okay, and then is in terms of, so that's sort of like a gamification element, isn't it? So then in terms of actual user experience, are there things that you're doing that you would say are, you know, trying to tap into that kind of Netflix or Spotify experience?
I think I will just to add, I think it's not just about trying to think about the Spotify model. It's about, I think the one thing I have noticed, especially around business travel, the companies, is the structuring where they actually build their teams to innovate these new products. So they're slower innovating. It might take 2 years to launch a product rather than do it iteratively, like many startups do. And it's all down to one, hiring, and two, building that product team culture, which is all about that lean innovation, breaking things quickly, moving quickly. And that's what a lot of the TMCs are, one, scared of doing, and two, most of them probably can't do it because these high risk businesses. And where us as a smaller business, allows us to do that, learn quickly, and build that product team that enables us to get the data and iterate changes within a matter of days. And it also helps that, obviously we've come from the travel industry from a consumer perspective, so from Booking.com and Skyscanner, and our UX designer used to be a contract UX designer at Booking.com as well. So it's kind of a mixture of structure in the teams and how they work, and with finding the right talent.
So, apart from yourselves, obviously, where else do you think there's innovation going on in business travel?
A lot of carbon footprint needs to be addressed quite quickly. That's very topical, and it needs to be. I think as human beings, we all have a responsibility to be far more eco-conscious. Some of the things that we're doing is every 5 bookings that are booked within a policy, we'll donate £5 to book trees. We work with a local charity in Manchester to do that. That's our first foray. I know that there's a lot of innovation with the Cactus, the Climate Change Action Group, which I think Lee from Dynast Group is heading up, Lee Jackson. So we're trying to partake as much as we can. As a startup, we can only make small changes right now, but just being kind of conscious of those changes that we all need to make and continue to elevate that as we grow.
And for me personally, is also, there needs to be a change with GDS, and that's where I like the new systems such as Duffel and Kite are coming out, because it gets rid of the old business model with archaic technologies, and they're kind of building that new Stripe model into the travel industry where it's developer first. We're coming from, I did a computer science degree, most of our team is engineers. They want things that are simple and easy to use. If you can't convince the developers to use it,
then you're stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're maybe not such a fan of GDSs. Is that because you see them as sort of gatekeepers traditionally?
I think number one is it's very hard to get access to them as a small business. So I know I'm not going to name the particular GDS, but it took us 6 months to even get access to a test API. Well, that shouldn't happen. If I use Stripe, for example, or even Duffel, I can get the API on the day. That's the big difference. And me as a small business, me as a developer, I want quick access. I want instant access. I want to make sure it works. If I'm waiting 6 months, many small businesses who wait 6 months could die.
You can't wait. But would you say that these newer players would have this sort of breadth and depth of content that you would need, or is it okay to just not play with it, because that's not what a business is, obviously, but to do it in the meantime while they're building at the same time? You can learn together in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to take time for these new emergents to come through, because obviously not a lot of there's a lot of airlines that either don't have NDC yet or they're still behind on their APIs. I know Duffel, for example, they've got about 20 airlines. Obviously they need a lot more, but given the funding that they have, it's going to happen. And
kind of have to wait for the airlines as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that takes time, because obviously they've got their processes, they're big businesses. And at the end of the day, for an airline, their priority is servicing their customers, not building an API. So it's about their priorities as well.
Yeah, there's a wave of innovation, and with GDSs, we absolutely still want to work with you guys, but they just need to be more receptive and a bit more quicker, and perhaps be a bit more perceptive about the current market conditions and how fast things need to move. And if we can help with our innovation and other startups do the same, be more collaborative in working with us moving forward.
That's probably a fair comment. I'd say some of them would accept it. So I was just going to briefly ask you, what's happened in terms of winning here the Disrupt Award last year? Was that a sort of moment for Taptrip, or was it just? Do you
want to know the story behind us applying it?
So Tom is very cautious, and I'm not.
Okay.
So I saw the application process. Thought, should I tell Tom? Should I not? And Tom would say no. So I kind of just did it behind his back.
And then said, "What, you're presenting in 10 minutes?"
But yeah, it was great. It was a wonderful platform. We was up against some really, really esteemed companies, some of which have now become really good friends of ours. But it gave us the profile, but more importantly, the validation to show what we were building was special, it was needed, and to get that recognition was just great.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely helped springboard us now to a position of people knowing who we are, wanting to work with us. It's been wonderful.
Okay. Now, there are obviously a lot of startups in corporate travel space right now, and they are attracting a lot of funding. What do you kind of think when you see those? Because I'm sort of thinking, well, it might be those smaller startups that are making incremental improvements as opposed to the ones that are necessarily attracting the masses. That I'm struggling personally.
So I've worked in startups for a long time. This is my third business. I've raised capital before, but it's quite interesting in business travel because a lot of people are doing these big rounds, and we don't want to do that. We've purposely not raised like that 50 million, 100 million. Yeah. We don't want to do that. One, we lose control.
Have you been offered it? Don't answer.
No. And what we've realized is you don't need to raise these big rounds to build a valuable shareholder-driven company. It's all about focusing on your key KPIs rather than focusing on how much money have we raised. That's why we purposely, when we've raised money, we've kept it undisclosed. We're not shouting about how much we raise. We don't want to shout about that. We want to shout about our achievements, not about how much money we have in the bank. And I think it is a good thing that there's getting this money because it drives more innovation.
Yeah, and it raises the profile of the industry as well. So that's good.
Exactly. But I think there's going to be a tipping point eventually. There will be. Of let's say if one of these big boys or big girls, whoever has raised this amount of capital, they die, then there's going to be a big question.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I would worry about.
I mean, we're hearing rumblings already about, from the investment community about those levels. So it'd be interesting to see. Some of the bigger established players are saying, well, what are they doing that's different? So you do want
Well, they're basically becoming, most of them, who have raised a lot of money, they are TMCs.
Yeah,
they're just technology enabled.
Comment is being made. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Okay, so just one final thing. I remember when you very kindly filled out our startup stage on PhocusWire, and you were kind of coy about customer acquisition, and you said, well, kind of, wouldn't you like to know, or something like that. So I'm going to ask you the same question. How is it going in terms of acquiring customers?
So we have a two-pronged partnership strategy that we still have to be very coy about.
Okay.
What I can say is we have a huge announcement coming around about May with a global financial institution partnership that is very, very exciting. And then we will continue to explore other partnerships with other TMCs. And that's probably all I can disclose. But when we speak next time, we can share more, I promise.
All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.